What's up, Rockstars? I have a great news video for you because we have some talking points, we have some campaigns that are coming up, we have some campaigns that I've never covered before, we have some campaigns that are just ending, some that are doing very well, some that aren't doing very well, some that are going to be canceled. We got a whole range of things, and I've put it all in this video so you can get informed when it comes to crowdfunded board games and where we're at, where we're going. So stay tuned. As always, if you appreciate the effort I put into these videos, then I do thank you for checking out the links down in the description below to those campaigns that you can see. Obviously, all of that's there, but also to my Patreon and YouTube membership, and even the subscribe button or the like button or even a comment. All of that really helps and allows me to know that I am actually helping you guys. So if I am, let me know through at least one of those methods so that I know that all the effort is totally worthwhile. I do this for you guys. All right, so we're going to do this one a bit differently because it's actually going to be a whole mix of things. So I'm going to kind of change the pace a little bit on different things. So some are going to be things coming up, some are going to be little talking points, some are going to be campaigns I'm looking forward to. The one thing I will say is that the very end of the video has two campaigns that I am very, very much looking forward to. And really only one of them I've covered. One of them has changed, and I haven't covered it in a long time, but it's coming up here soon. Like I said, it's changed, but in a very cool way. I got some new stuff to show you, so I'm excited. So at least stay tuned for that. Again, I'll do that at the end of the video because I might gush over it a little bit. I want to make sure not to pad out the rest of the video. So let's go ahead and get started. Now we're going to go in and start with Insania Twisted WTF Co-op Horror in Rome for 1 to 4 players. Insania is a pretty insane game. It is a very over-the-top kind of game, a no-nonsense, right-in-your-face kind of game with violence, gore, nudity, some non-political correctness, what have you. It is all there, as they say, trigger alert, baby, right? This is very much a game for adults, and adults that aren't squeamish about any one of those subjects. So just know that going into it. Now, there's an oddity here. I'm going to get to that. So I'm actually going to skip my quote here that they've chosen and just kind of show you a little bit more about the game. As you can see, it has miniatures. It reminds me a little bit of Black Rose Wars in its layout, but obviously there's a lot more going on there. Over 40 detailed miniatures, watercolor artwork, which looks great, dungeon crawling, but also highly strategic. And as you see, the dungeon crawling is still fairly contained. I appreciate that. A lot of times when you're doing a dungeon crawl game, it just gets out of control, right, map-wise. So that looks like that's pretty cool. Another neat thing they're doing is, based off the followers, the price of the game is actually getting a little cheaper. Now, this is a little bit of a risk for them, right? Because they're assuming that the people that are following it will back it. But either way, the more interest it's showing, the assumption there is that the cheaper they can provide the game. Now, obviously, those don't convert to backers, then there is an issue. So I'm glad that they're sharing information here, and hopefully they continue to share information on this, including a price. I think that's a very important part. And as you can see right here, they kind of are, but they haven't really shown you everything you get for that price, right? As of right now, the Kickstarter price is $129 with an early bird of $115. But that can, if this gets 3,000 more followers, which I don't know if it will or not, but either way, they can get down to about $100 for the early bird, which is pretty impressive, especially if that 40 detailed miniatures and all that kind of stuff comes in that pledge. That's pretty darn impressive. So, either way, I think it's cool. Again, I like seeing new things, and that's where they got the quote from. "This is crowdfunding perfection" is a quote that I believe I did say. I didn't go back and verify, but I'm assuming I did. It sounds like something I'd say for this, because to me, crowdfunding board games is all about either getting a great deal, which is often what it used to be about, right? Like getting the collector's edition. Now it's getting the premium collector's edition, but not at a great deal. And every so often you see a campaign like this where it really only lives on crowdfunding. In other words, only backers could bring this to life. This is not retail. It can't be retailed for a variety of reasons, a lot of it being the content in it. I got my start on this channel covering these news things from the board game Hate, which had a very similar thing, because you could eat people and kill children and destroy innocents and all this other kind of crazy stuff, and then torture the people you captured. And it obviously wasn't super gross about it necessarily. It was kind of an elevated game where the innocence was just a token, right? But it's a token of a silhouette of a woman holding a child's hand kind of thing. And it's okay, yeah, I see. why this wouldn't necessarily be super duper retail mass marketable. Instead, it's only possible through crowdfunding. Insania, I think, is very much the same thing. That is not to say, when it says this is crowdfunding perfection, I'm going to let them keep that. That's what I said, and I'm explaining why I said it. I'm not saying everything they do within the campaign is. So, for instance, this is not perfection, right? Some of the things they handle in certain ways aren't the way I would do it and wouldn't call it perfect either. But nothing has to be perfect for me, of course. It just has to be perfect for the backers that back the game and are excited about it. And for that, I am glad it is on the crowdfunding site, in this case Kickstarter, and I think that is perfect. Hopefully that explains that, and it looks pretty cool. Okay, moving on from that, we have Rumble Planet. Rumble Planet still has 4 days left at time of recording, so by the time you see it, about 3 days left. It's raised over $100,000 and is approaching that 1,000 backer, kind of hallmark that you need for that minimum viable product if you're manufacturing in China. That's not necessarily what everybody's doing. In fact, I think the next campaign I'm showing you is actually 3D printing their minis, so I'll get into that a little bit. But either way, this is by Ankama Board Games, and they did recently actually, I'll show you exactly what they did. I think they actually show, maybe in the about, yeah, so they did Arquise, Monster Slaughter, and then these other two. I hadn't heard of these. Monster Slaughter was back in the day when I was painting miniatures. I was becoming kind of close-ish sort of friends. We talked quite a bit with Watch It Paint It back in the day, and he painted a lot on Monster Slaughter. It looked really good. I never played it. I did get Arquise, but didn't end up painting it, but the minis were fantastic, and the board game looked pretty cool, but it took forever to get to us. So hopefully this one goes a little bit quicker. What I like about this is it seems to be doing something a bit different. So you have the minis, of course, that's fun. You have the 3D scenery. That's pretty common these days. It's a big, I don't want to say trope, but it's definitely a fad right now. Right now, it's very popular to have 3D aspects to your board game. So, obviously, like Creative Game Studios really popularized that a whole lot with, like, the Chronicles of Drunagor, but of course, there's other companies that have been doing that, either have or had, or even Hate that I mentioned had those 3D plateaus, right? But it's definitely becoming more of a thing, I think, much more common. This is kind of cool. It says Rumble Planet is a battle royale with a loot and shoot twist and no player elimination. That means you keep respawning or coming with a new guy or something like that. But additionally, everything's constantly changing, and you always have a chance to come back by the sounds of it. Because you do get a lot of equipment that you can upgrade, but your gear also goes bad, and so then you have to adjust your strategy and get a new weapon. It kind of reminds me of the battle royale games that you'd play in like CSGO or Fortnite, or I don't know if Fortnite does this or anything, I guess, but where every kill you do, you like change a weapon, right? It's a very common thing now in video games. It sounds kind of similar-ish to this in the board game, which I think is pretty cool. But they do have some other ones, including some scenarios. There's a boss battle expansion that adds a T-Rex. The theme, the art style, all of this looks fantastic to me. I really, really do enjoy pretty much everything I see here. They do have pre-painted minis, which is kind of cool. It's not something I would grab, but it is awesome for those that get that. It's not the best painting typically, but it is pretty good and definitely adds a lot of color, which I think this game definitely needs. But yeah, the art style just looks fantastic to me. I love this. I think this looks awesome. Kind of reminds me of like Starcadia Quest a bit. And I mean that in a good way. Here's that boss battle expansion. So it looks pretty good there. If you go to the actual price of it, it'll cost you about 72 buckaroos to get the core game. If you want the gameplay all in, it's about 105, so fairly cheap. And then, of course, if you want the pre-painted, it's only 150 all in. Again, fairly cheap. And then, of course, you have the deluxe all in at 180, which is now getting to like the price of like a normal crowdfunding game at this point that I cover. So either way, I think the price is actually pretty good. Those dice look amazing, by the way. Just really, really, it looks like a lot of fun. Again, it's something different. It's something unique. It's something that is kind of smaller scale from a smaller company. And I think it's awesome that they're here. And I wish them the best of luck. Hopefully that 100,000 is good. And hopefully it continues to rise so they can, just... I want the people backing it to be very safe with it. And it looks like, again, to me, quite a bit of fun. All right, next up we have the Plague Throne. This is by Team Drew's Basement, LLC. It is using the Super Dungeon Explorer collection to then do this. And that's super crazy because, as you know, Super Dungeon is not exactly a great thing to mention on crowdfunding, right? Because it didn't end up delivering its final ones. It had a lot of issues. There was just a whole host of problems. It was one of the early failures of crowdfunding after being a great success, right? Kind of like Mythic Games, but on a much, 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 much smaller scale. but still affecting quite a bit of people. In fact, if you have been affected by it, or if you want to let people know, again, leave the comments down below so you can see, other people can speak to it more. This was almost right when I was starting to get into crowdfunding, and maybe even a little bit before. So you guys can probably explain it better than I can, at least in this quick video here. So either way, as you can see, they still come with these really cool minis, and you're able to kind of essentially use those, but in a new way with this new rule set. Now, if you go to the, it's probably Story of the License. So if you go here, you can read about it here, but essentially he's not Ninja Division. Those are people that did Super, what is the name of it? Super what? Super Dungeon. Super Dungeon. Yeah, he's not affiliated with any of that, and instead he got essentially an open license for this one time. As long as he doesn't break the lore, he's free to do this. It is a legal game. They are fine to do this. So that's really cool. I think that's awesome. I love the idea of it. But I know it is kind of a dirtied, sullied word, and a lot of people aren't going to scroll all the way down and read this big old thing like I did, trying to see how they got the thing. The TLDR version, very, very nice. But even then, as you can see, it's a little wordy. It's a little wordy. Which just means a lot of people aren't going to read it. I think this is cool. I really do. He's also going to be doing 3D printing for the miniatures. So first of all, the quality is really high. But also that means that he doesn't really have to worry about that part of the mass marketable. That is by far the most expensive portion of making board games, both in just the steel mold cost, but also the modifications you have to do and stuff like that. Now this just launched. As you see, they have 23 days left, 83 backers. It would be cool to see this obviously succeed where Super Dungeon didn't. But will it? I don't know. It's not exactly the nicest looking campaign, so that can be kind of hard, right? There's little small images. Some of it can look a little busy and stuff. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. Again, anytime you can breathe new life into a board game you may not be playing anymore, I think that's cool. I like that. I kind of like the idea even back when like Monolith did it, and even though they didn't like do it in a good way and it wasn't successful, and maybe it's not here. Maybe this is something that I think sounds cool, but when money comes into it, we're just not paying for it. Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. Either way, looks pretty neat. Okay, come on. Cthulhu, Death May Die, Forbidden Reaches. This has a giant Godzilla, so let's talk about that. All right, so they announced this, the next Cthulhu Death May Die. They're finally starting to actually get the ball rolling and releasing their last campaign for Cthulhu Death May Die. And of course, we need more. Again, at least I know the first one I played, very much enjoyed all the scenarios. I played them multiple times, had a lot of fun. I haven't played any of the newer ones. I would probably be okay just playing it, but maybe I don't play it enough to need that many more scenarios. It's kind of weird. I'm sure I'd enjoy it if I had it, but would I put money towards more of it? I'm not sure, when I'm still pretty happy with the current one. But I know a lot of people love this, and I think that's fine. Okay, so obviously they added Godzilla here, which is super duper cool, right? And really one of the big things that they're talking about here is, of course, this. The bigature, right? That they always do, where you can get the gigantic mini. That being said, this is larger than you will get. So let me show you the real, obviously it's a cool base, cool mini, cool design. I love it. I love the fat Godzilla, always a fan of that. This is the actual size, so it's about this big-ish, which is still huge, right? It's just not quite, the size of a whole torso, but it's still pretty big, yeah, looks pretty cool though. Definitely looks awesome, for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to very much love that. I have no idea where I'd put it, but it is pretty neat. I know my brother, he loves Godzilla, will love this. So would my daughter, my youngest daughter, she loves Godzilla and will love this. So yeah, pretty cool. Okay. Bardsung, Tale of the Forsaken Glade. This one, again, right at about the 48-hour marks, right? 1 day, 21 hours. So again, last minute, again, everything's linked down in the description below. But this is letting you know, hey, this is ending. This is your last wording here on this. This is pretty cool. I thought this was just more Bardsung, but it's not. Instead, it's just a standalone game in the same universe. So they're just leaning on the IP, but it almost, like, to me, kind of hurt the game. I think it looks cooler than Bardsung did. And honestly, a lot of people are agreeing. There's almost 3,000 backers. This is by SFG, of course, over 600,000 raised. And yeah, I'm probably going to raise even more considering they're right at the end. So obviously the minis look fantastic. I think the design here looks cooler than the other stuff. SFG does make pretty good minis. They make pretty good quality board games when it comes to the component quality. So I think that'll be awesome. And again, this dragon, stuff like that looks fantastic. So that's really, really cool. Again, these minis, the design, I think this looks even cooler than the original Bardsung. So I'm down with that. If we scroll down, and honestly, it's not even that expensive, right? So here, like if you just want the base game, right, you get that one. Maybe it was right here. Yeah, right here. Hero Pledge, $140. You still get the Giant Dragon. You get 2 different boxes here. One's going to be full of minis, of course. If you get $255, you get the Deluxe Pledge, which comes with expansions, and, of course, Neoprene Mat and fancy dice and all that kind of stuff. Either way, not like the most expensive game ever. But you'll notice it does look pretty different. Again, these minis look fantastic. I love the design. I love the style. They look like they're smartly designed, or they'll print really well, though that does look pretty darn skinny, so that might thicken up. So there's a few changes that might happen, but overall, looks pretty good. But as you can see, very different looking game. Very different looking game. So just know that this has some similarities, like that card was a little similar. Also, at the same time, it's not similar. So I think that's pretty cool. I like the idea of just further exploring this IP, this world that they've invested, but with a little bit of a different game. So looks pretty cool to me. Again, last minute mark there. Okay, and I'm trying to move fast because there's a lot going on here. The Maniac, I showed this leading up to it. Now we're at the 4-day mark, so this is probably the last time you'll see it on my news video, so fair warning there, but I'll roll back and see how it ended up. That being said, over 2,000 backers, 300,000 raised, doing pretty good, obviously. This is by Escape Studio Games here, and I think they've been doing pretty good job when it comes to this. They did these older ones as well, like last Friday, and the Boogeyman and stuff like that, and obviously that's super cool as well. They've been on this like train for a while, obviously, right? Now the board, again, 3D, looks fantastic. I know that's kind of a big thing right now. I love the little trays on the outside. This is the deluxe version, just as an FYI. They do have a solo mode, the standard mode, and then the variant mode as well. It's one thing that's pretty cool about this is the fact that you're going around, you're looting things, but eventually, I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. You find the mask, and then the mask makes you a maniac, right? And so you don't know who's going to get it. You don't even know if you're going to get it, which is pretty cool. I think that's kind of neat. The minis look pretty good for their what they are. They're very a little cartoony, little big-headed, big-armed, kind of like the old style of minis. But that means they do print really well. And they're a little bit cheaper to make, but the detail-wise on the clothing and stuff looks pretty good, and I like the poses overall as well. Like tipping the hat and stuff like that. That's fun. They do have the standees version also. The marker for the Maniac and stuff, and even some it looks like it's tokens, but it looks like 3D to me. But I guess they're just tokens. Either way, a lot of different stuff there. If you get the collector's box, then that's when you get the 3 floors, a high tower. You get like these like trees for the forest, or like cardboard you put on the side, kind of like a standee kind of thing. That's pretty cool. And then you also get the GameFound exclusive. These are the 18 plus, one for the female characters and one for the male characters that are a little bit more gory, perhaps a little bit more sexual, stuff like that. The normal kind of slasher film thing that a lot of people backing this are into, because that's obviously the theme. How to play, high level, search for useful items, right? Eventually somebody's going to get the mask, right? And then you got to watch out for the Maniac and get escape from them and hide and run and try and fight and do all this stuff to get away from them, and eventually do that as long as you trigger your finale. So I think it's right on board with what people are wanting, right? When it comes to this theme, I think this is exactly what a lot of people are looking for. So that looks pretty cool. That looks awesome. So that's ending up here soon. Next up, Lands of Evershade is coming out in about 10 days. I will obviously make a video once it's live to kind of show it. I've said a lot about the miniatures and how sometimes I really like them. Sometimes I think they're not so good. They did update this. This used to be art. It is now mini. As you can see, they got rid of all the random AI art doodads and things coming off and stuff like that. Flattened the back a little bit. This is a much more printable, which I appreciate, but it means you don't have all the things hanging off like it used to, right? So they made it actually usable, which is good. I do appreciate that. I wish they just, didn't make the art look more like a mini, just so they're not giving any wrong impressions there. And I'm still very cautious about the face. Just having those teeth like that, getting the injection mold to actually push into the plastic to that much of a point, being that defined with the gaps in between, is not something that I see actually possible. I've partnered with Reborn Games again recently to help with some more miniatures that they're making, and those are the kind of things I talk about, right? Because when it comes to actually melting the plastic and pushing it in, it has to kind of reach every crevice in that mold. And so if you have really long, skinny parts, stuff like that, it can very much be difficult, especially at the very tip. And then, of course, it's just how fragile is it, how skinny does it get, stuff like that. And having all that on a mini that's that big, I do have some caution there. I'm not sure that face is going to come out that way. And same with, you know, something like the inner ear and stuff like that. There's a few things like that, but oh well. I love the art style of it mostly. I think the only thing I don't like is the items. They show the cards. I want to show you the cards because those are beautiful cards. But otherwise, like these right here, like the equipment, to me, it looks very, very plain in a way that I'm not really a fan. I do like how it highlights the item, but otherwise, this looks boring to me. And I don't want it to look boring. The cards look fantastic. Maybe scroll down and see some of the cards here for a moment. They haven't updated anything. I have no idea what they're talking about with body type A and B or what the difference is there. I don't know if we're going to see that before it launches or not. It doesn't sound like it if they haven't shown it yet. They just show the same thing afterwards, so I'm not sure. They still have the guy with the like armored fingernails and stuff going on, and her arm is still like, you know, putty or whatever, I guess. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, and then there's still the impossible cloak, right? So I'm not going to go too into that, but I do want to show you the lovely cards. I mean, they look kind of like this, right? I think down here, yeah, they show some of the tiles there and stuff, but the cards themselves look fantastic. I really like the cards. I like the edge-to-edge art. Yeah, see this right here? That's what I was talking about. Just looks great to me. I actually like kind of the cleaner bottom part with the art and a little bit of background on each one. It just, I don't know. To me, this looks really good. I do wish there was maybe a bit more here. But, you know, it's personal taste. Obviously, it's Awakened Realms. It's going to deliver. It's going to be something that a lot of people very much enjoy. And that kind of shows with the, 39,000 people that have followed it so far. So, it's going to be big, obviously. Okay, next up, Super Fantasy Brawl Reborn by CMON. This is, I think, their actual next one. And I think Cthulhu with Godzilla is going to be later. Now, the Reborn, obviously Mythic Games did do this, and all they're offering here are the minis from Season 1. They're calling Season 1 anything Mythic did. And they're also offering updated cards. But otherwise, this is all new stuff, and the gameplay is slightly tweaked and changed a little bit. Also, they're doing typical CMON stuff when it comes to, like, a little bit of the manipulation to get you to, like, back more, of course, right? That's pretty typical, too, though. They don't have any, like, fancy, like, 3D portions on their outside or anything like that, but overall, it's the same thing. Now, they do have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They do have Mortal Kombat. It wouldn't be CMON without utilizing IP to make you want it more. And then it wouldn't be like CMON to, like, put them all in the same box. No, instead, you gotta get partial of them so that you back more. Of course, there's that, too. The price is a little high, but the gameplay is fairly well known. Again, there's some slight tweaks, and so if you like that, then you'll be fine there. There is, of course, a pre-order exclusive because FOMO. That's why this character is pretty cool. I like him. It reminds me of like SteamWorld Dig kind of guy going on there. They also have the other expansions, Heart of the Iron and the Midnight Serenade. And again, it's just like what Mythic Games did, where it's like 3 different characters, right, and then their cards, right? It's kind of how they're doing that same thing here. And then, of course, you can get the Cowabunga combo with both expansions. Notice just one of them does not give you everybody. Instead, they've split them up. So you get 2 here and 2 here. So if you want to play as a TMNT, you actually need both of these to be able to play as a full team. That's obviously on purpose. And, of course, there's a pre-order exclusive, Casey Jones, because, again, why not, right? Why not? Same with the Mortal Kombat. They're going to split things up from some of the ones you like. So, for instance, Scorpion and Sub-Zero are on different ones because, again, of course they are. And of course, that's a pre-order exclusive, and it's what character everybody wants because everyone loves Goro because he's got 4 arms. Okay, now if you look at the rewards here, notice you can't just like, there's not like an all-in. So instead, you can get the Battle Reddit combo, which gets the 2 expansions. You can get the normal one at 50, and honestly, this is a pretty good deal. I think this is a nice deal. At $50, that's great. Even $90 for all this, that's fantastic. Even 110, I would say fairly good, though it does bother me that this is 3 expansions, this is 3 expansions. These expansions come with nothing more. They just have some IP attached to it, and so they are $20 more, from 90 to 110. So that's kind of garbage, but again, it's IP, so you'll probably look past that arbitrary $20 increase and get it anyway, because, I mean, that's how it is. And obviously, if it was a DC thing, I'd get it too. So, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's why they do it. They put the IP there, put the pre-order exclusives, up the price, do all that stuff. And, of course, make it to where you can't get all of it, right? Notice these don't even come with the other 2 expansions. So, essentially, you can get one of the 110s, and then you have to get the other 80 for the 2-pack of them, right? Which isn't any cheaper than just buying both, but, of course, you'd buy both. But then you also need to get these as well, and these are $30 each. And so, and I don't know, it's a bit much, right? $40 for 3 minis is obviously quite expensive. That's over $10 a mini. There's a few cards there too. But all this literally is, and notice again, $40 versus $30. The IP costs more. It's not just selling more, it costs more. And then of course you have your upgrade pack if you have all of the previous stuff for $15. If you don't, you can get for $100 all of the minis. Maybe this will load, maybe it won't. There we go. So you have all the original ones as well too. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. You know, I'm glad Super Fantasy Brawl is continuing. I think it looks like high quality. I have no idea if it's going to be printed at the same quality Mythic Games did. Mythic Games put a lot of money in their miniatures, and they were fantastic minis, and definitely outshined Conan, at least in recent years. But, you know, that was back when they were also delivering. So, you know, who knows? If the but honestly, with the scale and the chunkiness and the cartooniness of it, I think it's going to go pretty well. So I think overall it'll be a good game. It just sucks to see the overt kind of business decisions behind it, as opposed to just the game, right? It kind of snaps you out of looking at a cool game and being like, wait, why is it $20 more? Because Scorpion's in it? Well, yes. And because they know people will pay it. Okay, Dice Throne is coming out again. If you don't know what Dice Throne is, there's tons of reviews, and also this is the Dice Throne has been a type of game that's been coming out for a long time. Over 10,000 backers, that's why it does very well. Over 1 million raised, it's doing fantastic. Still 15 days to go. So I'll try and get a kind of a last 48-hour mark on this as well. That's probably when I'll show it next. It is following the same kind of thing that is pretty typical, where you'll see it with Christmas and you'll see it with Halloween, where they like come out with the Halloween edition for the campaign, so you back it, but then you get it in like July or something like that, right? So it's really like for the next Halloween. Even then, you know, it'll be actually it looks like estimated delivery October 25th. So next Halloween you'll have this. That's actually kind of cool. I if that works out, that's fine. If it doesn't, it's kind of a bummer, right? Because you can't play a Halloween game in November. That's not allowed. But I do like the theme. The art looks pretty good. It's the same kind of stuff that you would like if you've played the other ones. There's a little uniqueness to each one. So each one will have, like this one will have a different one. So each one will have the different kind of different gameplay mechanics within the overall Dice Throne style. So yeah, looks pretty cool. Looks pretty cool. Next up, Mighty Shot by This Is the Game. This Is the Game is comprised of former Mythic Game employees, not of the management. Instead, it's just like the designer and the artist and the marketing guy and stuff like that. Like it's not, and I'm not saying any of those specifically. You'll have to look at the list. They're pretty open about it. They have a few things about it, but really, it's not like Leo or anything like that. But obviously, you know, people are concerned because there's any kind of relation to Mythic Games, even if it's just the poor people that were trying to do their job. Well, you know, you can see the issue there. And you might think, well, some of the issue was because the design wasn't working out and stuff like that. Fair enough, you can make that decision. I'm pretty okay with it. I think it's fine. There is also some confusion that people are thinking it's going to be like Super Fantasy Brawl, the one I just kind of showed, because the art style is the same. That's because I think Jib did both, and hopefully I'm saying Jib right. Actually, if I go to dig deeper here and then scroll down here, this is his name. I first saw him when he did art for Clash of Rage, which was a really fun game. Great art style. My kids loved it. Super cool. I was a big fan of that, right? So that is some of it. It is just the same artist. So this is the kind of style of art he does, and it's fantastic. I love the art style. Also, as you can see, the minis, fantastic looking minis. Now, obviously, these are renders, not minis, but I imagine the minis will look fairly close to this, mainly because as long as you do it to the scale, his art style, the kind of cartoony, almost World of Warcraft kind of style, works really well for that. So the minis look fantastic. The characters are full of character, right? They feel like they're full of character, but this is a very different game, right? So in this game, as you can see, you're actually doing some flicking to like attack them. It's not just the cards, and you're like moving around on the board, and it's kind of an interesting duel. You have your board, they have their board, and then you fight, right? So you can dig more into it, but either way, it looks pretty cool. I'm glad to see them still being able to create awesome games and hopefully move away from the disaster that was Mythic Games. All right, next up we have Avalon, the Riven Veil. I just unboxed the physical version of this that does show quite a bit, so I do want to put that out there. That'll probably be either my next video or the video right after it. Either way, it'll be like within a week I'll be posting the unboxing, so if you haven't subscribed, be sure to so you can see that. And of course, then I'll play it. put a full review out as well. But either way, super excited for this. This is coming out November 12th, so very, very soon here. Crystal Age is wrapping up. It's at the 48-hour mark, and obviously, as you can see, it's probably not going to fund again, which is a little unfortunate, because, again, I think it's one of those games that is different, that is trying to do something different, that is a little bit more unique, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing when it comes to crowdfunding. You want to stand out, but at the same time, if people don't quite understand what they're looking at or what they're getting, then they're just more hesitant to back something, and it's just more of a risk, right? If you can't, like, relate to, this is just like that other game you liked, because if you've never played anything like it, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. So there's always that balance. So kind of interesting to see that. I do hope they find a way to get this to the finish line, just because, again, I think really when it comes to crowdfunding, I do want to see more indies, more unique stuff like that if I can. Conan is also wrapping up. This is the RPG. It's not a board game. Again, last 48 hours, over 2,000, almost 2,500 backers, making over $350,000. So still doing fairly well there. It's a little bit smaller scale than a board game, but it's also just, you know, RPG books. So it's a little bit easier to do. Plus reprinting minis that they already have sculpts on. So that's kind of what's there. If you go to the stretch goals, they have been unlocking a lot more stretch goals when it comes to either minis that they're including or enemies that they're including, like RPG rules for, stuff like that. So just more content, really. Right, next up we have Dungeons Reforged hand-painted modular terrain. This is just a reminder, about 9 days left, almost at $1 million. If you recall, before it was a little bit lower, it's now ramped up a lot. And all it takes, because this can be quite expensive, because it's gorgeous, beautiful, well-made, hand-painted, expensive miniatures, and miniature terrain, all it takes is one dungeon master that's like, you know what, I'm going to premium the crap out of my next campaign, and then boom, a couple thousand are raised, right? Like, that's kind of how it goes. It does look pretty fantastic. Notice, again, less than 1,000 backers putting that much money into it. And honestly, there are several campaigns into it, so they've definitely, like, added more and more and more that you can get. There's a lot of options, a lot of themes. If you're interested, be sure to check it out. Link down in the description below. Next up, the Bad Karmas and the Curse of Cthulhu. This is wrapping up at the 3-day mark here, so probably right about the 48-hour mark by the time you get this video. And yeah, 8.6 in BGG is pretty good. They've been adding a lot to it. They're showing it off fairly well. People are obviously enjoying the game, and I think that's awesome that they're continuing it. Again, over 1,000 backers, so they succeeded there. Now, is this the biggest thing ever? Obviously not, but I'm glad that Tebrew does have this kind of solid fan base and foundation that they can continue to build on. I think that's super cool. All right, so now I do have my final two. These are my final two that I am super pumped about, super excited about. So I'm going to try and get into it. First things up, Enormity. I've shown you this before. Into the Unknown. Enormity looks very cool. It looks very different. So I really appreciate that. It's kind of like a hard sci-fi, but with some mysticism and some oddities and, you know, strangeness and stuff like that, which is cool. Building on a lot of the mechanics that they've had, but also different. It is this kind of like big dungeon thing, but everything is connected as you flip through this, which is cool. And everything is built into this. So it's very streamlined in how you're playing it. It looks like it's not going to have the bloat that it had when it comes to, like, more of the Aeon Trespass Odyssey style stuff, right? Where it's like you have 2 tables worth of stuff. I don't think that's going to be it. It does look like you build out a little bit over it, but I'm assuming it's not too bad. Even though it looks bad, it looks like most of it is in there and you won't have any ancillary things. Instead, it's all still based on the game itself and kind of what you're doing there. As you can see, it kind of builds off like that. So it looks like this then moves over here, right? So it kind of step ladders, which looks pretty cool. I like that. I think that's awesome. In fact, even when you go to the location, it's like you build stuff out of there. Now, this is probably the quote that says the most about it. In space, no one can hear you scream, goes the famous line in Enormity, something will devour that scream, regurgitate it into a self-propagating sound virus, infectious and virulent like the plague, unfathomable like the infinite universe, and thus full of dread. Well, okay then. All right, then. It does also mention stuff like player-crafted cards right here, a hand of player-crafted. Like, I don't know what that is. That sounds crazy. Again, I like that they're doing new things. Into the Unknown tends to change things up a bit, keep things interesting, keep things new. I'm excited to see more. And then finally, we have Malediction, the Prime Edition. Now, there's one mini I want to show you from this as well, but this is from Loot Studios, and they are doing what they're calling not a collectible card game, but a miniature card game. So they are selling like the cards and the tokens and the trays, and it's like a skirmish fighting game, and then you can 3D print the minis or use standees. So the minis look fantastic. Loot does a fantastic job on that. But this is what you would get in the box. There are going to be 4 factions at the start, I believe. And again, the artwork looks fantastic. It reminds me a little bit of Magic the Gathering in a very good way. You got everything you need to play the game right there, so you can actually start playing the game. And then you can 3D print the minis if you want as well. And again, they look fan-freaking-tastic. The art looks good. The minis look good. The business decisions sound good. The company is well-known, well-regarded, has a good backing, a good foundation. This looks like a win to me. Like, seriously, this looks good. I hope to show you more here soon. Now, I did promise one mini, so there's this guy here. Now, I'm going to play this just like frame by frame, but as you can see, there's like a thing like coming through his like head, right? And this is just some terrain they printed, so I'm assuming you're going to be able to get that. But as you can see, it looks super cool. It's like through his face, out of his eyeball, just crazy stuff. Love the theme. Again, very much only available because backers are backing it, and I love that. I love that. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, guys, that is a lot. There are some discussion points. There's some companies that are founded by people from Mythic Games. There's new people doing like miniature card games, and there's all sorts of stuff. Plus regular stuff like Awakened Realms, come on, doing their thing. Another Dice Throne, like every year, all the time, right? Like, let me know your thoughts. Did I miss anything cool? Is there anything coming up that I should focus on? Was this video helpful? Again, everything is linked down in the description below, of course. Guys, had a blast doing this. Really did. I know I spent most of today reading through all of this, trying to get information for you. Hopefully it was helpful. If it was, please do let me know. I do really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye, guys.